I have this very unorthodox belief system about modesty for women, that people are always like, if you've got your belly out, then that's immodest. If your top goes to a certain thing, you shoulders, depending on what culture you belong to, what modesty is. In my estimation, modesty is a behavior pattern.
Welcome to another episode of Is This for Kids? I am Jonathan Beard of Blevins.
I am Katie, MrsRuvi.
My goodness, do we have a doozy for you today?
We didn't realize it was controversial until it was too late.
Kind of, yeah. So we're going to talk about Aladdin. I don't know if this is controversial or not, but my son, my oldest, was just in a live action Aladdin play.
Was he really?
Yeah, he was.
Like the Disney version?
The Disney version, yeah.
Nice.
So it was like 30 to 40 minutes. It was very condensed and it was very adorable.
Sure.
And he was he did a great job singing. And he was in the chorus and doing all this stuff. But I forget the character he was, but he did just an awesome job. And he has been singing all of the songs with my two other kids. They're now all obsessed with the songs for the last month and a half.
That is so cute.
It's
want to
adorable.
see Kiara singing. What is it? The I Can Show You.
Yes, she loves that song,
so
and Jody will
cute.
sing it. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. So we've had a lot of fun with Aladdin in our house over the last few months.
Yeah.
And then we said, hey, let's review it for Is This for Kids? And I turned it on the Disney Plus app, and there's a warning in the very beginning.
The very same warning you see at the beginning of Peter Pan.
Yes, and a couple other Disney movies. So we're going to get to all of that. MrsRuvi,
Yeah.
didn't you just get Millie a new phone?
Yeah, so this is not our first time introducing phones. We've got two older kids, and we made so many mistakes with the oldest one, and then we made new and interesting mistakes with the second one. But I think we might have cracked the code with this third one. Have you heard of the Bark phone?
I have.
Okay, it's super, super easy to set up. You kind of go in there and say, what do you want to be alerted to? Do you need to know if your kid got a skinned knee? Do you need to know if your kid's being bullied? Does your kid have access to these apps? Do you even want to give them access to the Google Play Store? That kind of thing. The Bark phone does it all on one thing, and then it alerts me through the Bark app on my phone.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's so much faster. And the main thing was that we really didn't want her to have access to apps until maybe even high school at this point, based on our other experiences we've had with our kids. But she was so embarrassed at the idea of getting a flip phone. Bark phone looks just like every other kid's phone out there on the market, and she was delighted to get it. She's like, oh my gosh, I thought I was going to get a brick, and she got this nice high-tech good camera phone.
Good for Millie. As soon as my kids are old enough, I'll be doing the exact same thing.
I just got to get her to stop taking selfies.
Good luck. And I turned it on the Disney Plus app, and there's a warning in the very beginning.
The very same warning you see at the beginning of Peter Pan.
Yes, and a couple other Disney movies. So we're going to get to all of that, but today we're covering Aladdin 1, Aladdin 2, The Return of Jafar, and Aladdin 3, The King of Thieves.
King of Thieves. Which I always said Prince of Thieves because it came out right around the same time as Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, and I feel like they completely ripped that off.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not the same time, but
Also, there was some drama happening that I didn't know when I was a kid. So Aladdin 1, you've got the Robin Williams who just crushed it as Genie. Something happened between him and Disney where he did not end up doing the Return of Jafar, which was actually supposed to be a straight to TV movie.
Yep.
But then they decided last minute to put it in theaters.
Did they really?
Yeah,
I thought it went straight to video.
I'm 98% sure that they ended up last minute switching it.
Yeah.
And then the third one, Robin Williams comes back. And it's funny how the Rotten Tomatoes reviews go from number 1 is amazing, number 2 is horrible, and number 3 is awesome.
Yeah.
Probably because Robin Williams makes the movies. But do you want to give a little summary of Aladdin here for those who haven't seen it?
I'm just going to give you Aladdin 1 here
Great.
because the rest of it is a little convoluted and digging for content, basically. But in the first Aladdin movie, we meet Aladdin, who is the diamond in the rough. So the overarching bad guy is a guy named Jafar. He needs a person who is a diamond in the rough to open this cave of wonders and get access to this genie's lamp. So he finds Aladdin. He has him arrested. He takes him down to recover the lamp, and he accidentally gets closed into the cave with the lamp. So Jafar doesn't get it, but now Aladdin is sitting here with this magical genie and 3 wishes, and the only thing that he can think of to wish for is to be a prince so that he can win over the heart of a girl he just met in the marketplace and realized that she was Princess Jasmine. So his goal is to be a prince for her so that he can win her over, and unfortunately he now has a genie that Jafar wants to get his hands on, and so they've got a little bit of conflict there.
Yeah, great job. Yep. And the second one, then Jafar becomes a genie.
Jafar
and is freed, and that's a whole thing. And the third one, Aladdin meets his dad. So there's a lot going on.
Lot going on.
And all of the Aladdins.
Yeah.
What are your general thoughts?
So here's the thing. When I went into this, I thought we were remaking like a version of our Lion King episode, which I encourage you all to go back and watch, where you were going to tell me it was too sad for kids or something. And we were going to...
Oh, it was heart-wrenching.
I was like, I mean... Aladdin is clearly a kids movie. It did not occur to me at all that there would be any question about it. I thought this was going to be one of those gimme episodes. But then that warning popped up at the beginning and I was like, why am I getting a cultural sensitivity warning on Aladdin? And so I started Googling and looking at it, figuring out what that was about. And obviously there's a lot at play there. And because it's not a culture that I belong to, obviously my sensitivity to it is a little bit lower than other people's would be if that is a culture that they belong to. But I guess the bigger issue is that it's not a culture that anyone belongs to. It's a product of something that they call Orientalism, which is where you tend to believe that all Middle Eastern cultures and Eastern cultures are the same. So you've got people wearing clothing that would be indicative of a member of the Sikh religion, talking about Allah, which is just not generally how they would, that's like conflating two different things. So basically it's pretty insensitive to think that everybody looks the same. It's that given, oh, do we all look the same to you kind of thing?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that was a concern until just now.
Yeah. I did not either. And I have to say, when like growing up, I didn't even think of any of that. It was just a cartoon.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's really interesting to think about from a perspective of kids and kids movies. Like, I don't know. I'm sure there are some experts out there and all of this stuff that would be like, oh, John, like there's for sure things like Aladdin have shaped what you think about X, Y, and Z. Maybe that's true. I just don't see it. So like, I thought the movie was great when I was a kid. I didn't even know that, like, when I saw the movie, I don't know, I was like 6, 7, or 8. So it's like, I didn't even know how many more countries there were outside of America in general.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it was just like, I kind of had a crush on Jasmine.
You and every other man on the face of the planet. Like,
right?
In the comments, let us know. Was Jasmine your first Disney crush? I want to know.
Yeah, it's weird to have a Disney crush, but for sure I did. And it was definitely Jasmine.
Because y'all love seeing tummies, like belly buttons.
And then like the first few girls I ever like had a little tiny crush on who were real and not Jasmine, like looked kind of like Jasmine.
There you go.
Which is interesting. But yeah, so that's a whole interesting conversation to have. But as a kid, I had no clue. It was just a fun Disney movie. My kids, I asked them about it. They were like, what? They just wanted to talk about the genie and Abu and, their characters in the songs. So
one of the things that I think is maybe overlooked a little bit by people who are very concerned about the Orientalism, which I'll grant is annoying. Like, that is annoying that you're pretending all cultures are the same. But this was the first Disney movie I remember encountering as a kid where somebody from a place other than Europe was there. Like, this was pre-Lion King, this was pre-Mulan, this was just kind of a very first thing. So I remember thinking how smart I was when I realized when he says by Allah, that what he's saying is by God. Like, he's like, and I was like, oh, this is the word that they use for God in the Middle East. Like, and I would learn things from it, although maybe not perfectly. It piqued an interest in something. Yeah. And I think that there is something to be said about there being a good character who comes from a region that we have conflict with. The heroes of this are Aladdin and Jasmine and her father. So this is a conflict region from the time that I was young. My father was in the military during Desert Storm. So like, this has always been sort of a thing in my lifetime, but it never created in me hatred for people in that region. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to go with same. Yeah, I think that's it. But on the other end, like, I definitely see the concern about conflating things. And maybe this is sort of like, what was the thing we watched before? Oh, when we watched Manhunt, and I was like Googling, is this real? Is that real? Is that real? Yep. This might be an opportunity for that, where you're like, how much of this is true? Which culture does this go with? This might be a cool unit study for your kids. If you're like, which culture does this, aspect of Aladdin come from? And how could we break that out more appropriately? But I have a thought. Okay, so share. So I asked on Twitter, because I went and looked up which Disney movies got that warning at the beginning of it. And I was surprised to see Mulan was not one of them.
Oh, it wasn't?
It was not.
Okay.
And I went and checked on Disney Plus. It definitely doesn't have it. It might after this episode if somebody gets us into people's faces. But I posted on Twitter, which is more culturally insensitive to you, Mulan or Aladdin? And I'm thinking in my head, in Mulan, you've got a character played by Eddie Murphy that is named Mushu, who's supposed to be a dragon. Like, that's clearly a reference to Chinese food. And it's a little, kind of gross. It's not present in the live action Mulan, which is unfortunate because he was hilarious. But most people, it was 2-1, thought that Aladdin was more offensive than Mulan. But the people who commented exclusively said that Mulan was worse, and they gave reasons for it. They were saying because of the way the Huns were depicted in Mulan, they look subhuman, that like they are made to look animalistic, whereas everybody else is sort of comical. So you've got in Aladdin, people were pointing to big noses and bushy beards as being culturally insensitive. And I would think that if that's the case, then a Fu Manchu and squinty eyes would be similarly offensive. But that was not the case for most people. Most people didn't think that about Mulan. Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I honestly have no idea. Because and maybe I just am an idiot here, but like I just didn't think about it in either scenario.
Yeah. Well, so when I looked it up online, most of the things that I saw from Mulan were that that there are actually Chinese people in the world. That's a real place. China. Yep. Agrabah, not so much. Right. Agrabah's not real. So with reference to Chinese culture, if the Chinese people liked it and they thought it was good, then we are okay to like it. And
since there's no one from Agrabah.
Nobody from Agrabah to tell us, it's fine. We are actually like a weird multicultural society here in Agrabah. Yeah. Like there's nobody to sign off on it and say that it's okay. So there's that. People in China are not offended by Mulan. So here we are.
Yeah. Interesting. What are your any other thoughts in general about the movies? Like, I enjoyed them. It did seem, I don't know, Jasmine to me does seem a little over-sexualized for a Disney movie. But that was kind of Little Mermaid, kind of common maybe back then. But I have an issue with the third. So.
Oh, okay.
What?
No, I'm just going to jump on the hypersexualization thing. I don't. I have this very unorthodox belief system about modesty for women, that people are always like, if you've got your belly out, then that's immodest. If your top goes to a certain thing, you shoulders, depending on what culture you belong to, what modesty is. In my estimation, modesty is a behavior pattern. If you are acting as if you are being sexual while, like if you're in a swimsuit at the beach, if it's appropriate for the location that you're in, that's more important than the actual style of dress themselves. I had the opportunity to go to India. I saw tons of elderly women's bellies just constantly out because it's just not a thing in that culture. They were not sexualized because they were not behaving sexually. And so in my estimation, modesty is a behavior more than a style of dress.
Yeah, and so I actually am thinking a little bit of her style of dress, but also just her character in general. It doesn't really, like, she's kind of shaped. Yeah, she's kind of like shaped by the men around her at all times. Her character is pretty weak, other than the fact that she's very good looking and that she's a princess. So, and I kind of meant more in that way. But again, it's like it's a cartoon character.
Yeah.
But in the third movie, in King of Thieves, I mean, they let Robin Williams just go ham. There were a dozen references.
I don't even think he had a script. I think so he was just doing stuff.
Yeah, and so I was laughing and like looking at Jody like I didn't get any of these jokes when I was a kid. Yeah, 100%.
And I had that VHS.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I watched that movie a million times. Never understood the jokes. As an adult, I'm like, so I still have a little issue with stuff like that. But we did watch all three with my kids. They loved them. They even liked the second one, which was objectively just a bad movie.
Yeah.
So other than some of the adult humor and some of the issues we talked about early in the episode, what do you think for age for Aladdin? Should kids still watch it, and what ages?
Yeah, honestly, I do think Aladdin is still appropriate for any age. Roast me if you want. I don't think that it is as harmful as people believe it is to have bad guys depicted as bad guys. Everybody in the movie is a Middle Eastern person, and the fact that the bad guys are bad guys that also happen to be Middle Eastern, like it just doesn't bother me that much.
Yeah.
And I think that it promotes more curiosity about the region than it does hatred for it.
Yep.
And so for me, I think that this is completely fine. Unlike Peter Pan, where we were like, yikes, you're going to have some conversations there.
Yeah.
I just think it's more silly than anything. But going forward, I suspect Disney's going to have to use animals rather than people, like they did with Robin Hood,
right.
To be able to tell that story without feeling like they're dehumanizing someone.
Yeah.
I would say this is appropriate for whatever age kids can sit through a movie.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. And I also think if I even tried to have a conversation with my kids who are 9, 8, and 4 about any of the stuff we've talked about, Orientalism or anything like that, it would just further confuse them. Like, I don't think that I could have a productive conversation about that with them yet.
Yeah, I just don't think that, like, any conversation you try to have would be putting ideas into their head.
Right, that's what I'm saying, yeah.
Like, oh, they have beards and big noses. And you're like, what's wrong with beards and big noses? My dad has a beard and a big nose.
I have a big nose and a beard, yeah.
Yeah, like, the kid would not have thought anything of it until I brought it up.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah.
100%.
Well, there you go.
Let us know what you think in the comments on Instagram, on YouTube, wherever it is you listen to. Is this for kids?
Oh, but we forgot to say about the second one. We haven't really given a lot of information about the second one because it was really, really crappy. Skip it completely. Like, the animation is bad.
Yeah, no Robin Williams. The animation's bad. Iago's character makes no sense.
The story's garbage. Like, nothing makes any sense in the whole thing. And it's very sad. It just makes you sad.
Yeah, if you are going to watch it, or if you're not going to watch it, just explain to your kids for the third one that Iago becomes semi-good.
Yeah.
Semi-good.
Question mark, I guess.
Yeah, we'll see.
Whatever. Yeah, there you go. But there's a lot of content out there for us to wade through as parents.
I'm Jonathan Beard of Blevins.
I'm Katie, MrsRuvi. Let us help you decide.
Is this for kids?